Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, we're going to ask Investigator Tippins to come up and give us a safety announcement.
Investigator Joe Tippins, I'm with the Sacramento Enforcement Office. You doing your safety briefing today? I'm Investigator Tippins. I'm with the Sacramento Enforcement Office, and I'll be doing the safety briefing today. In the event that we have a disturbance, Investigator or Chief of Enforcement Carlos Alvarez and I will address any disturbance that takes place in the audience. If it becomes a little bit more rowdy, then we'll ask Board President Dr. Felsenfeld to take a recess, and then we'll address it as needed any further at that point in time. If there's any type of event that requires the evacuation of the room, we would ask that all board members take that exit right there. I guess that's to your left, and everyone else to file out. Everyone else to file out and follow that exit. Thank you. Have a good board meeting.
Okay, Mr. Tippins, thank you very much. Investigator Tippins, appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Dental Board of California meeting. I am Dr. Alan Felsenfeld and serve as the president of the board. Today is Friday, February 9th, 2024. The board meeting is being held via teleconference with a disclosed in-person location available for board and public member participation. For all those who wish to participate online, please log on to the WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code will be provided as part of your connection to the meeting. During each call for comments from board members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. This is an official business meeting of the Dental Board of California. The board welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator will explain the process for providing public comments shortly. For individuals participating via the WebEx, when called upon, the moderator will give the individual permission to unmute themselves, and they will have 2 minutes to make public comment, as will anyone in the room. The moderator will audibly announce when 30 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 2 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with the testimony previously provided, you can say, I'm in support of that testimony. I would like now to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comment will be taken during this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. This is the moderator of the meeting. For purposes of today's meeting, when the board president opens public comment, members of the public who would like to provide public comment at our DCA location in Sacramento can approach the table and microphone at the front of the room. For those joining via WebEx, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature to facilitate public comment. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, I would like to make a comment, in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and give the individual permission to unmute their own microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or board members. Questions submitted using this feature will not be answered. When making your comment, please make sure the comment is directed at the host in the drop-down. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item.
Thank you, moderator. I would like to call this meeting to order and ask the board secretary to please call the roll. Dr. Ledrian.
Good morning. This is Dr. Lily Lorene, Board Secretary. I will now call the roll. Chan,
Chan, aye.
and President Felsenfeld,
Felsenfeld, present.
Felsenfeld present, Forge.
Forge present.
Forge present, Larin present, McKenzie.
McKenzie here.
McKenzie present, Medina.
Medina here.
Medina present, Molina.
Molina here.
Molina present, Olage.
Olagi present.
Olage present, Pacheco.
Checo here.
Pacheco present, Thakur.
Thakur present.
Thakur present, you.
You present.
You present. We have a quorum, Mr.
We
President.
have a full house today. Thank you very much, Dr. Lorin. We will now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we open public comment on items not on the agenda, I would like to remind individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may later come before the board for a decision. Such decisions are considered ex parte communications as they could provide information to board members that is outside of the record in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. Accordingly, if an individual makes comments on a pending disciplinary matter, the individual will be interrupted. The board can, of course, receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. In addition, public comments should address the board as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda should provide information to board members, but it is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action that board members can take right now is to listen to comments and decide whether or not they would like to have a future agenda item on this topic. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. In the interest of time, as we've done in the past, we would like to request that public comments not repeat statements by a prior commenter. If you are in support of a statement, as I said earlier, made by a prior individual, your comments have already been made. Just state your name and association if you wish, and your support for the previous commenter. Legislative hearings regularly use this practice as it is a good way to ensure that we can hear from everyone today. So are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened the question and answer feature. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and will give you a moment.
Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for public comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Before we get to the actual business, I think Dr. Lorin has a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, this is the Board Secretary, Dr. Larin. I just want to make a shout out to all the dentists in California because today is your day. It's the International Day of the Dentist, and I want to thank everyone for all the good work you do for the public and for the oral health of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. We all agree with that, especially all of us who are dentists. All right, item number 3, agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on November 8th and 9th and December 15th and the 15th meeting, 2023 board meeting minutes. We will consider these individually. So first, are there any board comments or any discussion of the November 2023 meeting minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion and a second to approve the November 8th, 9th, 2023 meeting minutes? Please state your name and your motion or second. Chan, you can, Chan's reaching for his card. I see that, sir. Dr. Chan, good morning.
Second.
All right, Dr. Chan, motion. Dr. Yu, second. Is there any board member discussion on the motion to accept the minutes? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. And if any member of the public would like to make a comment on the meeting minutes, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. This is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item. And
The motion is to approve November 8 and 9 meeting minutes. Dr. Chan?
Jan, I.
And I, Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I, Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I, Ladine, I, McKenzie? Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Mackenzie, I, Medina?
Abstain.
Abstain. Molina?
Molina, I.
Molina, I. Olage?
Aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Pacheco, I.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, I.
Thakur, I. You?
UI.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Larian. We'll now consider the December 2023 meeting minutes. Is there any board member discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion and a second to approve the December 15th, 2023 meeting minutes? Please state your name. Dr. Chan is moving to accept them. Is that correct, Dr. Chan?
That's correct.
Thank you, Dr. Chan.
Mackenzie, second.
And Mackenzie seconds it. Now that we have a motion before us, is there any further or additional board member interaction or concerns about that? Seeing none, we will go to in-person public comment on the December minutes. Seeing none, are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? The DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on these minutes, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. Again, we're showing directions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, DCA moderator. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the minutes, record the votes, excuse me, for this item.
The motion is to approve the minutes from December 15, 2023. Chan?
Jan, I.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin? I. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, I. Medina?
Medina, abstain.
Medina, abstain. Molina?
Molina, I.
Molina, I. Olage?
Palagi, I.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Pacheco, I.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, I.
Thakur, I. You?
UI.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4, the board president report. Well, I actually have something to report this time. Sometimes we have things going between meetings, sometimes not. But I had an opportunity to attend a California Highway Patrol training. California Highway Patrol is responsible for the safety of all people within government. It's more than just the highway. People don't understand that, but that's what that's all about. And we had a lecture on threat and situational awareness in February 2nd. I attended that along with Dr. Montez and perhaps some of our other members. I found it to be interesting, informative, and scary. And in this day and age, in the environment that we live in, and that's why Mr. Tippins was up in every meeting. We start with safety announcements of what to do in the event of any kind of a threat or situation. And I had a chance to do that. It was interesting. I also have reappointed, and my board members have all re-volunteered, whether they know it or not, to be on the committees that they served on last year, because the committees are actually doing some things, and it's very good. So they're all doing a good job, so they're all going to continue to do that. I also want to offer kudos and congratulations to our staff, some of whom are here right now, for doing really good work. And I've had personally, I get positive feedback as people know that I'm president and they send me a note saying the board really handled this nicely. And sometimes we don't get that, but mostly it's nice to see that we're getting that. And so that's good. Congratulations and thank you to staff. We continue our weekly meetings, sometimes twice a week meetings with our executive officer, and she's going to elaborate on the positive feedback in just a moment. And I'm working on a presentation now to go before the California Dental Society of Anesthesiology in a few weeks, and I'll report it back when I come back after that. And we're talking about enforcement. Mr. Alvarez has put together an enforcement presentation, and I'm somewhat plagiarizing it and moving it around a little bit, but I'm going to present that. I'm looking forward to that. And that is my report. Is there any board member comments or discussion on my report? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comment on my report? Seeing none, will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for public comment if there are individuals on WebEx who would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 4, the Board President report, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 5, the Executive Officer Report. Dr. Montez.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld. As Dr. Felsenfeld mentioned, we continue to have our weekly meetings going over board operations and business. Again, I am very pleased with the progress that our staff is making. We continue to have reduced backlogs across our enforcement cases and are on time, up to date with all of our licensing and our permits. So kudos again to our staff. Also, I wanted to share with you, and we will talk about this later when we get to our dental assisting council recruitment, but we did have 2 of our members resign for professional reasons, and I did have Ms. Pliss reach out and ask that she share with the board via me that she has started her first week of dental hygiene program. And of course, because of that, it does make her ineligible for being on the council. But she wanted to say that she has a lot of admiration for the board, the council, and everybody who represents the dental community. And she's grateful to have been a part of that. So again, later on in this meeting, we'll have more on the recruitment process. I would also like to share with you that we have the federal professional license portability and state registration via the Department of Consumer Affairs. This is based on the Federal Service Member Civil Relief Act, which authorizes service members and their spouses who currently hold a valid license in good standing in another state to practice in California within the same profession if they are required to relocate to California because of military orders. And so California recognizes these licenses and these military orders. And to date, the dental board has registered 3 dentists. They are from Ohio, Utah, and South Carolina. And I want to again emphasize these are registrations, not licensed. These individuals are allowed to practice during at which time their orders, their military orders require them to be here in the state. So again, this is, I think, a wonderful thing that the department and the dental board is doing again to support our service members. With that, I would now like to introduce some of our board staff. We've been doing this at local meetings here in Sacramento. We took a break last time, but at this meeting, we're going to have Ms. Regali, who is the chief. Well, she was the chief of licensing and examination. She's going to introduce her staff. I will share that Ms. Regali just recently was promoted to the chief of administration and compliance. And so she's still going to be providing some oversight until her replacement is found. But we are very happy that she's continuing to work with our board and specializing in the discipline area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paige. Thank you.
Just a microphone. You can come up here if you like, but has to be heard by the people being recording this too, though. All right, that's good.
Good morning. My name is Paige Regali. As Dr. Montez just shared, I have been working in the license and examination unit in various capacities for quite a while now. So today I just want to introduce a lot of the people who do a lot of the work behind the scenes. So you guys don't really interact with them or see them a lot, but they are the ones who are keeping up on the applications, processing things, all the day-to-day functions. So Darren Williams is our, you guys stand up. This is our license and examination unit manager. So he's the direct manager over the unit. Darren's been with us since June of 2023, and he came from within DCA already. We also have Ricky Eady. Richard, we call him Ricky. He is our lead AGPA in the license and examination unit. So he works on different like oral maxillofacial surgery permits, a lot of the more complex permits and stuff within the unit, and does a really great job of assisting when, you know, the supervisors and managers are out to kind of keep the work moving. He's been with us for a little over a year now. I believe he came in October of 2022. So Jessica Donaldson is what has been with the board for a year and a half, going on 2 years now. She came in as an SSA, also from another program within DCA, and then she promoted up to our official trainer in our unit. So she definitely helps with making processes a lot more efficient. She streamlines a lot of our deficiency language verbiage, and her and Ricky work really well together, making sure that everything is kind of flowing. We have Abby. I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, LaCure, I think. Abby, Stephanie, and Haley are all of our analysts in the licensing examination unit. We do have one other one, but he is not with us currently today. So they are the ones who are communicating with our applicants, who are doing our registered provider permits. They're the ones who are working through our very busy graduation season and keeping everything moving. So they get a lot of the issues and a lot of the communication with all of our applicants. So they're really more of like the front-facing people of our unit. We have Marlene, who is our SSA, so one of our analysts, and she processes our permits. So any business-related permits, fictitious name permits, additional office permits is what Marlene is responsible for. She's been with us for going on a year. So I believe she came around June as well of 2023. And then we also have, that's everybody for licensing. Oh, Isis, how could I forget about you? Stand up. This is Isis. She is our cashier. So she's been with the board for before my time with the board. So she's been there for a very long time. 2012. So yeah, she is very fluent in a lot of the processes. She has been dedicated to be more of a license and examination unit cashier. So she works with all of the anesthesia stuff, anything related to like the dental licenses, the business permits, that type of stuff. She also helps whenever needed. She does all of our cashiering functions. She trains, she backs up for the dental assisting cashier, and she helps wherever kind of we need her to go because she knows a lot. And then moving on to our discipline coordination unit, which is just one person. So this is Ashley. So Ashley, you guys all interact with her or her name through email at least, so you know her name. She's the one who sends all of the mail votes that you guys receive and communicates with you in regards to the discipline process. So she has been with the board for a year in December. So she came to us in December 2022. So it's been just over a year now. So it's nice to put a face to the name for all of our people here and all of our staff who work so hard in the office that you all don't get to see so much. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Regali. Not so fast. I've got a quick question to put you on the spot a little bit, but we all know Ashley up here at the board level. So, first of all, approximately for the licensing part of it, approximately what is the number of total licenses and permits and all that that have to be dealt with by this group of people?
So they don't maintain the licenses. So I think we have over 50,000 active licensees around that number. But they are getting upwards of application statistics of incoming applications. I mean, we receive hundreds of them throughout graduation season, especially. I would say probably Reb and ADEX obviously are our highest numbers, but maybe upwards of close to, you know, almost 1,000 combined throughout the entire year as they trickle in. And there's 4 different pathways that we have. Plus there's all of the other things that come up. You know, there's the military, there's the expedites, there's all of the different issues, and then our different schools and our different processes and policies that are always impacted by new legislation or new, you know, proposals that we have. So there's a lot that they have to keep up on, and they do a really great job of staying up to date on all of the information and making sure everything goes as needed.
Very busy group. Thank you
They
very
are.
much. And Dr. Montez.
Okay, so I have one more item. It is also staff related, so bear with me because I want to make sure that I get all of this information correct. So I'm going to do a little reading here. The state of California has a merit award program, and within this award program, there is a superior accomplishment award that departments have the option of offering to employees. And it's a very specific award in which it includes things like an important contribution to science or research, a contribution that results in substantial cost savings to the department or the state, or potentially a major improvement of methods, organization, procedures, things like that, something that's exceptional above and beyond. And so the board submitted an employee's name to be considered by the department, and the Department of Consumer Affairs, their merit board, reviewed the various applications that were submitted, and our nominee was selected as an award recipient. And I'm going to read you a little bit about Mr. Pendergast, who is here. So Matt is a special investigator with a dental board, enforcement division. He was granted the Silver Superior Accomplishment Award. So in addition to Matt handling a full investigative caseload, he's taken on additional duties such as trainer for new employees, specifically our new investigators, and these are special investigators, a peer reviewer, and then one of the board's Breeze experts. Jessica is our other one, but Matt works with Jessica very closely. He's also taken on a leadership role to improve case processing timelines. As part of the Department of Consumer Affairs Enlighten Enforcement Project, which of course we've had updates on that, Matt stepped forward and volunteered to partner with DCA and board staff on Breeze enforcement related components. Whether working on his cases or participating in board projects, Matt always keeps deadlines and goals in the forefront. During the board's high vacancy period, Matt continued to support the efforts of the enforcement division and the board's mission. Matt is respected among board staff. He treats others with courtesy, acts professionally, and has a positive attitude. He's an exceptional employee who performs his duties above and beyond to make the enforcement division excel and improve the operations and services of the board. Consistent with the board's mission, Matt works to provide services to empower consumers, California consumers. And when we announced this at our all-staff meeting, everybody cheered because, again, everybody knows Matt, and he's just a big positive asset to the board. So on behalf of the board, we have a certificate that the department has issued for us to give to Matt, and he's also a recipient of a $250 check. And so we're thrilled that he's here to join us so that Dr. Felsenfeld and I can award this to him and take a picture for history. So thank you, Matt. Congratulations. And with that, that concludes my executive officer report.
Our staff works very, very hard and exemplary. Thank you very much, Matt. Congratulations, staff. Thank you for what you do. Is there any board member comment on Dr. Montez's report? Dr. Chan? It's in the back, all the way in the back.
Got it. Just want to compliment Dr. Montez and the entire staff on the sunset review that's going to be presented this year. This is my third interface with the sunset review, and it is among the best organized, the best researched, and the narratives are very, very, very clear with so many dishes and cycles and gears in play to be able to research it out and to identify the things we do. So Thank you, Dr. Montez, and the entire staff for putting that together.
Thank you, Dr. Chan. Well deserved. Any other board member discussion on Dr. Montez's report? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Again, seeing none, are there public comments from individuals who are participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on the Executive Officer report, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. We are going to now move on to agenda item number 6, report of the Department of Consumer Affairs activities, which may include updates on the department's administrative services, human resources, enforcement, information technology, communications and outreach, as well as legislative, regulatory, and policy matters. Ms. Durantes is here. Oh, here she comes. I saw Yvonne Durantes. She's been with us before. Thank you for coming back and joining us. We look forward to your report.
This on? Okay, great.
Good.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy New Year. Almost happy Lunar Year, I think, today or tomorrow. So thank you for having me, and happy to be here today to provide several updates that we have, both from Board and Bureau Relations, but also on behalf of DCA. We will be having our winter newsletter coming out soon in the next couple weeks, which will include a lot of the information I will touch on today. So if you do have any questions, I will be sending that out to the board president and vice president, and it'll also be posted online. And we do also have our monthly BBR email that will be coming out also with a lot of this information. So happy to answer any questions and repeat anything as well, but I will go ahead and just get started. And so just wanted to start off with the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency update. And so we will be welcoming our new secretary this month. Secretary Moss was appointed by Governor Newsom in November, and she will be beginning her capacity officially on the 14th of this month. So I believe that's next week already. And so we just want to extend a warm welcome and inform you of our upcoming leadership. Moving on to budget update. In December, the Department of Finance did issue a budget letter that directs all agencies and departments under the governor to take immediate action to reduce current year expenditures. And given the fiscal outlook, the state of California anticipates a significant general fund budget deficit in fiscal years 2023 to 2024 and 2024 to 2025, which will require all state entities to take immediate measures to ensure more prudent spending, except for time-sensitive, emergency-related, mission-critical, and information security needs. Immediate actions include the cancellation of non-essential travel, such as participation in seminars, conferences, and training both in-state and out-of-state. Boards should immediately review all spending and determine where savings can be realized. Specifically, when planning meetings, it is important that boards conduct a cost analysis to determine the most economical option for the state. Please remember that when traveling, you need to consider all forms of transportation, hotel accommodations to determine the most economical option for the state. DCA has issued further guidance to leadership about exemption requests for purchases, contracts, and travel. And DCA appreciates your partnership as we continue to work together to reduce costs. Moving on to our diversity, equity, and inclusion update. The DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting in December, and the committee reviewed a draft DEI intranet report on the webpage.
For employees, re-elected its chairperson and vice chairperson for 2024 and discussed DEI trainings. After approval of the meeting, the committee announced the launch of the DEI intranet page to department staff. And this page provides a centralized location with DEI-related tools and information, as well as real-time updates on the department's DEI activities for all employees. Providing DEI opportunities continues to be a priority for the department, and so the DEI committee is pleased to offer board members a DEI training on how leaders navigate DEI dialogue in the workplace. The training is recorded and can be taken online at your convenience via DCA's learning management system. Again, if you do have any questions in regard to login or need any assistance with that, please feel free to reach out to me in regard to that. The online training is provided by Christopher Veal, who has over 25 years of corporate experience providing coaching, training, and leadership development. And the training provides tools for effective conversations, psychological safety, and how it impacts these conversations, and includes discussion around challenges leaders are facing. The DEI steering committee would also like to continue to learn about how to showcase DEI efforts within your board. So if you do have anything that you'd like to highlight, please send our way. Additionally, DCA continues to support DCA boards and bureaus in expanding culturally competent communications and promoting the importance of meeting the needs of all California consumers, licensees, and applicants. The latest issue of DCA's Consumer Connection magazine includes articles with information important to consumers, including a feature cover story translated into 3 languages to further reach the information. The magazine is available on the DCA's homepage, and printed copies are also available upon request. As our board president mentioned, DCA held a threat assessment training for board and bureau leadership on February 12th, which was put together by CHP and provided steps that can be taken in the event of active threat. And so if there's any additional information needed, please feel free to reach out. Moving on to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, on February 2nd, DCA provided guidance on Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act amendments to the teleconference option requirements, which took place on January 1st of 2024. And it was sent out to board and bureau leadership. And this guidance provides a general overview of the traditional in-person and teleconference options. And those are the options that we've been going over, I think, since November. So if there are any questions or anything, please refer to your legal counsel, or please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations. Moving on to legislative implementation update, as Dr. Montez also mentioned, we do have the Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration portal that is now up and running in support of service members and their families. And so we also just wanted to highlight this huge accomplishment for DCA. This new portal with representatives from U.S. Department of Defense, the Governor's Military Council, and the Department of Veteran Affairs and Military Department, have come together for this. And DCA has also provided a outreach toolkit in regard to how each board and bureau can share information on your social media for updates and listserv emails as well. SB 372, which is the Menjivar bill that was signed by Governor Newsom in September, also became effective the first of the year. And this bill requires DCA boards and bureaus to update licensee records if they receive government-issued documentation demonstrating a legal change of name or gender for gender transition or domestic violence reasons. This bill allows licensees to request their prior name not to be published online in connection with the license or the current name, and establishes a process for individuals to access a licensee's enforcement records under a prior name. And so this can be found via the DCA online license search. And again, if there's any questions, please reach out to us. One last thing, looking ahead, our president's training is also coming up on February 22nd, and DCA invites presidents and vice presidents to attend the department's annual president's training, which will be held from 10 to noon. And this virtual training will outline the role of the board president, including understanding the scope of the role, managing board members, communicating with the executive officer, and performing administrative duties. This training not only provides valuable information from DCA staff, but it also includes a panel of prior DCA board presidents, and their knowledge and expertise is invaluable. They will also be available to answer questions, and this training is not only for members who are new to the role, but any presidents or vice presidents that are interested in attending. And additionally, the board member orientation training is also coming up next month on March 27th. It will be held virtually. And so for anyone who's been appointed or reappointed within the last year, if you haven't already taken it, please do. And that is all. Happy to take any questions or repeat any of the information, but also, like I mentioned, it will be going on our quarterly newsletter and will be going out on our monthly email as well.
Thank you. I am going to be at the president's meeting on the 22nd. I've got that down, so you can check me off.
Wonderful.
And are there any other board member comments about Ms. Durante's report or questions? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments on Ms. Durante's report? No. How about public comment from those participating via WebEx? Lacey, our moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any other member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 6, the DCA report, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Rantes. Appreciate what you do. Item number 7, the budget report. Mr. Rumboa, you'll present this item for us. Morning.
Good morning, board members. Sorry, I have to switch screens. I'm Wilbert Rumbawa, the Administrative Services Manager. I will be presenting the budget item for today. These items can be referenced on your table. They are not in the meeting materials because we had to work to ensure that we provided the most up-to-date information for the meeting.
Materials either have or will be posted. We also have additional copies at the front and other copies if board members need them. Thank you.
The materials have been posted online, so you can look at it electronically if you choose to. I'm mainly going to be discussing attachment number 1. There's other items that have been discussed in the meeting memo, but I want to make sure that we focus on the current expenditures for the current year. Attachment 1 on the budget report provides substantial information on the board's budget for both revenues and expenditures and the projected fund balance. I'd like to highlight some of the information and provide a little bit more information for the board members. On attachment 1, for the board's fund condition statement, this is a fund fund condition statement based off of the governor's budget that was released on January 10th, 2024. And it incorporates the expenditures as of fiscal month 6 for the dental board. The board began fiscal year 22-23 with an adjusted beginning balance of $17.6 million. The board is projected to collect approximately $19.1 million in revenues, with $3.1 million from initial licensing fees and $14.8 million from licensing renewals. The board's expenditures for this fiscal year as of fiscal month 6 are projected to be $19.1 million out of the current appropriation of $21 million. Based on the projections, the board is expected to revert $1.9 million for this fiscal year. As always, expenditure and revenue projections may change with actual returns in the remaining fiscal months. The board staff, in conjunction with the DCA Budget Office, will continue to monitor these expenditures and revenues and report back to the board with monthly projections at future fiscal meetings. As Ms. Durantes noted earlier, Budget Letter 2327, which will reduce board expenditures to items that are mission critical in the current year. The state anticipates significant general fund budget deficits in fiscal year 23, 24, and 24-25. Although board funding derives from the state dentistry fund, the board is to follow state guidance as described in Budget Letter 2327. And lastly, we'd like to note that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's needs for additional resources. Where the board's sunset hearing is coming up in March, and we will have additional information provided at that meeting. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Rumbaugh. Are there any board member comments on Mr. Rumbaugh's report? Seeing none, Dr. Montez.
So again, I just want to reassure the board members and our stakeholders and the public that we do run very efficiently. Just about everything we do is mission critical because our job is protection of the public. So we are very careful in how we spend our money, and the department does require justifications to support these mission critical requests that we make. And again, they've been very supportive in understanding what we do and why we do it and the requests that we make. So thus far, knock on wood, we feel very comfortable with how we're moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional board member comment on the report? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments on the budget report? Seeing none, are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 7, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I do see a raised hand. Just a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes and you will be given a 30-second warning. And Bruce Witcher, you should see a prompt to unmute yourself. Go ahead and click on that. There you go, you're unmuted.
In the past, when there have been budget crises, there have been special fund loans from Dental Board Fund to the state government. I just wondered if there have been any indications of that this year.
Good morning, Dr. Witcher. As of now, the dental board still has an outstanding general fund loan of $5 million. This was taken out in the Budget Act of 2020 and is scheduled to be repaid on in June of 2025. And the return rate on that is 0.67%.
And we have not heard of any additional requests against for loans against our fund.
All right, this is a moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. 0.67, Mr. Umbauer?
Point zero. When you do the best percentage, it's
Thank you.
roughly
Okay.
0.7.
Very good. Thank you for your report. We're going to now move on to I'm still looking at that. Item number 8B, enforcement, review of statistics and trends. Mr. Alvarez, please come and join us.
Morning. Thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld. That's all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm skipping something. I guess my bad. We have, I went down a little further. All right. We have item number, thank you, 8A, an update on the Attorney General's annual report on accusations prosecuted for Department of Consumer Affairs client agencies, business and professions code section 312.2, January 1st of 2024. I'm going to ask Carl Sonny, who is the Senior Assistant Attorney General from the Office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, to present this agenda item. I believe he is virtual, and we're going to put him on right now. Please, DCA Monitor, and Mr. Sonny, welcome back.
Thank you very much, President and members of the board. Again, my name is Carl Sonny. I'm the Senior Assistant Attorney General with the Office of Attorney General at the Department of Justice. I'm in charge of this section called the licensing section that represents about 30 agencies, both within the Department of Consumer Affairs and outside of it. And we generally present our cases in the Office of Administrative Hearings, but we also litigate matters in the Superior Court and Courts of Appeal. Do I have my slides here?
This is the moderator, and yes, your slides were made part of the overall PowerPoint, so you can just direct us when you need them to be progressed.
Okay, just go to the next slide. Does everyone see that? I don't see it from my end here.
This is the moderator. It looks like the co-moderator is having some difficulty, so I will take the presenter role back. All right.
Perfect. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this morning, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the background of this report and the data that will be presented in it. I will talk about how the data is collected. I will give some general figures on the for the entire Department of Consumer Affairs, and then we'll spend most of the time talking about the data specific to the dental board. I will say preliminarily that the dental board has a very sophisticated and robust enforcement program. Over the years, I have handled many of their cases myself, and I can tell you that our staff, the attorneys and paralegals that I supervise, very much enjoy the cases that get referred to us from the dental board. They're interesting, they're complex, they're human-centric, and the investigative materials that we get are first rate. And so it is a delight for us to represent the dental board in all of its proceedings. The report that I'll be presenting and summarizing was just published on January 1st of this year and covers the fiscal year of 22 to 23. Next slide, please. So the origin of this report goes back to 2015 when a statute SB 467 was passed, and that made Business and Professions Code 312.2 effective in 2016. That statute requires that the Office of Attorney General report and collate and present in a public document its performance metrics for all of the agencies that we represent. The first annual report was prepared on January 1st, 2018, and we're now in the 7th report. The report itself covers 36 agencies and includes clients of both the licensing section as well as our sister section at the Office of Attorney General that's called the Health Quality Enforcement section. This report incidentally only concerns accusations that are referred to our office and therefore does not cover other types of referrals that we get, such as to represent the agency in writs of mandate or in statement of issue cases of people whose license applications have been denied, or for petitions for reinstatement or to revoke probation. So it's only a portion of the work that we do for the Dental Board and the Department of Consumer Affairs. Next slide, please. We use what's called our ProLaw system. It is a case management system that is electronic. That is the central repository of all the cases that we handle at the Department of Justice. The users for the report that we're talking about today amount to about 200 people, including attorneys and paralegals. And when we get a referral from an agency such as the Dental Board, the case is opened in ProLaw, and then it is tracked. And how it is tracked is the professionals enter data that shows the markers, or what we call milestones, for how the cases progress. So the data that gets recorded is when the case was referred to us, when the case was filed in the Office of Administrative Hearings, for example, the date of the hearing, the date the hearing was submitted to the administrative law judge, and the final date of resolution, and when the final decision from the board is received by our office. And so we have the capability of taking that data for every individual case and consolidating it with all of the cases for all of our Department of Consumer Affairs clients. And from that, we can generate reports and present the data that we are covering today. Slide. And what that shows, if you look at it on a general basis, is we have received in 21-22, 2,200 referrals from the Department of Consumer Affairs of accusation matters, of total matters, and then that increased to about 2,500 this past fiscal year. And if you look above, you can see that roughly a little more than half of the referrals involve accusations. We evaluate every case that is referred to us to determine whether or not a legal basis exists or a factual basis exists for moving the case forward. And occasionally, as indicated, we reject cases and return them to the agency. Often, not too often, hopefully, we do evaluate cases and determine that further investigation is needed. That is, the case looks like it will be able to be filed, but we need to do further investigation in order to consolidate all the facts that are necessary for us to generate an accusation, a pleading. And that happens about, as you can see, about 11% of the time. The final figure there is adjudications. Adjudications are the marker when the case is presented to the administrative law judge, and the case is then completed from the perspective of our office, or when the stipulated settlement, perhaps for many of these cases, are submitted to the board for consideration. And you can see that there's sort of an interesting corollary, a corollary between the number of referrals and the number of adjudications. They're roughly similar. And that shows, I think on a general basis, that we are processing our cases generally within a year. So that for every case that comes in, a year later, we'll see a case that gets adjudicated. Next slide, please. Now, this is data now specific to the Dental Board. And what it shows is that in fiscal year 21 to 22, 115 cases were referred from the Dental Board to the Office of Attorney General. And then that decreased 40% in 22-23. My understanding, and your staff can speak more to it, My understanding is that that was attributable to staffing issues. And that has now been, I believe, mostly corrected, and we are expecting to see those numbers increase probably in the direction of our prior numbers, over 100 cases a year. And your staff can speak more to that if they like. We will cover in a moment here. Oh, let me just make a reference here that during the period of COVID, we saw many agencies enforcement work disrupted. So if you go back and look at the report I did 5 years ago, it showed that the number of referrals that came to our office in 2018-19 were about 3,900. And that started decreasing during COVID pretty steadily, which we think was just a consequence of multiple factors impacting the operations of all of our client agencies, both within and outside the Department of Consumer Affairs. Now, as we exit COVID, we're beginning to see things return more to normal. Next slide, please. This shows the number of further investigations that we had with the dental board, and those numbers are really not too consequential. They do bounce, excuse me, they do bounce around from year to year. We're dealing with relatively small numbers here, so there's just a natural variability in these figures. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is the number of accusations that were filed in each of these 2 years. And again, this shows a decrease in 22-23, and I'm confident and expect that those numbers will be moving upwards this time next year. These only refer to filed accusations and not referrals, though. Distinguish the two. Next slide, please. Now, this is the data for the number of accusations withdrawn and the number of accusations that were adjudicated. And what is notable here is that the number of matters adjudicated are in the same general ballpark of 90-ish cases. So the work of the dental board on the enforcement side has actually been pretty steady during this past few years. On the withdrawn accusations, they can happen for any one of a number of reasons. Occasionally, we receive information from the other side, that is the licensee's counsel, facts that we were not aware of that may change the complexion of the case. And often one of the most common reasons for withdrawal is the death of the licensee, in which case the accusations are historically withdrawn so that there is no record. Next slide, please. This is sort of the case processing data that we talked about earlier. This shows and breaks up within the whole year process a case may exist. It shows how long it takes from the time we receive an accusation to the time it is filed. And each of those figures, 64 and 78, are within our goals that we have for all of our clients. And in fact, it shows that in 22-23, there was a little uptick. But when we get matters that are referred to us and filed within 90 days, we are very pleased. And that's what we kind of calculate for. So both of these numbers are really good numbers. Accusation matters adjudicated, 163 days, 228 days in this last fiscal year. Again, if you go back to that slide I talked about, you don't need to return to the slide, but when we are processing a case in the course of 1 year, that is for the same number of accusation referrals that get adjudicated, we believe that we're doing a very fine job. In these cases, we're doing even a better job for the dental board in this case. Next slide, please. And this shows what happens when we file an accusation. How long does it take to settle? And this figure, we showed 297 days, and then it bumped up considerably to 380 days. I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but the board's probably aware that it has had a lot of high-profile cases that garnered a lot of attention involving dental appliance makers and so forth. And those cases took longer to process, but they were very successful outcomes. And so we don't think there's anything to be concerned with that number. The default hearing, accusations to default, again, while they increased significantly, that is not in and of itself that remarkable, in our opinion. Next slide, please. Now, again, this is one of these periods that we break up and identify and report on from the time we get a case to the time it goes to hearing. So from the time an accusation is filed, that means that we have got the case, we have examined the case, we have prepared a draft accusation, and the dental board has signed and filed that accusation. And then it's sort of how long does it take from the time the accusation is filed to the time when we request a hearing. And this shows about 128 days, 150 days. Again, those figures are better than what we generally plan on in order to get our cases processed within a year. So both of those numbers, I think, are favorable numbers from my perspective anyhow. Then from hearing date received to the hearing commenced is a function of the fact that it takes time for the Office of Administrative Hearings to set cases for hearing. And that is, those numbers are again, we believe a pretty good figure. The increase in 22-23, again, I think would be attributable to some of these more complex cases that we handled for the dental board in the past year. And all of those cases, I believe, for the most part, have been now resolved and successfully resolved. So the number of days from average total up to 236 days to 378 days. The 378 days is a little more than what we would hope for, but I believe given the complexity of some of the matters that the dental board faced is a reasonable number showing the processing in these cases in a timely way. Next slide. What can you derive out of this? Well, one of the purposes of SB 467 is to just measure. When you measure something, you can evaluate how you are doing from year to year. You can identify trends. The goal that we have under the Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative from many years ago is to get all cases from the time of complaint to the time of final resolution done in 18 months. That's very challenging. The Department of Consumer Affairs and the Office of Attorney General have made great progress, but it's a challenge. And one of the big challenges is that licensees who we proceed against in these cases are entitled to due process. And that function of due process is something that they're entitled to as of right, and the Office of Attorney General ensures that those rights are protected. So there can be a fair amount of discovery and witness preparation in complex cases, and those just take time. Agencies that are reported in this document you have in your agenda, the entire 312.2 report, if you were to review it, you'll know that agency data varies significantly, often from client to client agency. You cannot take one agency within that report and compare it to the dental board in a meaningful way because their laws are different, their cases are different, the level of complexity is different. Sometimes the number of parties in these proceedings can vary. So we caution everyone to not compare one agency against another. In some respects, the dental board may have better metrics than another agency. In other cases, another agency may have better metrics than the dental board, but that is a comparison that we think generally leads to misleading conclusions. So this is my presentation for this year, and I believe this is my fifth time that I've been before the board. And I again just want to reiterate how much the licensing section enjoys working with the staff of the dental board. They're highly competent. All the staff that we deal with, the investigations are again robust, clear, and we are well supported in all the questions and assistance that we ask for in the processing of our cases. So I could not be more pleased with the work of the dental board staff than I am here today. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Sani, and thank you for validating the fact that we know we have an excellent staff here. Are there any board member comments or questions for Mr. Sani? Seeing none, are there any in-person public comments? Okay, will the moderator please facilitate the lines for public comments from those on WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this presentation, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand via our displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator. Ms. Sani, thank you so much for taking the time out of your, I know, very busy schedule to come and talk with us again.
Well, I consider this the most valuable time that I can give a client during the course of my representation. So it's been a true pleasure for you today.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Alvarez, sorry to put you up here early, but it's the same topic from our side of it. Mr. Alvarez is going to talk about statistics and trends within enforcement.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, board members. Be presenting agenda item 8B, enforcement review and statistics and trends. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review the statistics, and I'll kind of just touch on the highlights. And it seems that every time I come in here, I'm always talking about our complaint compliance unit, that what a great job that they're doing. On our last report on complaint cases that were open with the unit, we were at 615 cases. And so on this report, I'm happy to present that we're at 354 cases. So that's about a 42% reduction in cases. So that's a really good job on our personnel in CCU, where they're just staying on top of these cases. They're doing all the follow-ups, contacting the complainants. If we need more documentations, they're following up with the treating dentists for records. They're following up with the sub-treaters to collect more records. So that's a really good job that they're doing, just staying on top of these cases so we can move forward and they could go to our dental consultants so they can review the cases. So really good job with that. With our Orange office, with investigations, with our sworn, we kind of had open cases, like 7% reduction there. It's a small number, but it speaks volumes for our investigators and for me for present these statistics. So that's a really good job with our sworn investigators in Orange. Tracy a moment ago used the word efficient, and that's what we're striving for, is to be efficient. Bi-weekly, we have enforcement meetings with Tracy. We provide updates on our statistics, any trends that we're seeing. Then in turn, Tracy, she provides us with myself, with Ryan, the other chief, with the supervisors. She provides us with feedback, information, recommendations. And then in turn, what we do is every quarter, we have an enforcement, what we call an enforcement connection meeting with all of our enforcement staff. And that's our opportunity to pass on information. That's our opportunity to pass on knowledge. Type of topics that we discuss is any new laws that are coming in effect, any recommendations to be more efficient, to streamline our processes. We pass that on to our investigative staff. We also utilize our in-house dental consultants. They do presentations for us. We kind of gather what our staff wants to get knowledge on, and what we call that our Dental 101. And so therefore, our dental consultants present on implants, extractions, crowns. So that way it kind of paints a picture to our investigative staff. So when they're receiving these complaints, they're reviewing the recommendations for further investigations, they can understand what the dental consultants are referring to. So again, paints a picture, it gets staff to understand the complaints better that way. So again, that's our way of having these communications, having these meetings to be more efficient, and again, striving to protect the consumers by streamlining and just setting goals here. So that's my presentation on enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. There is no action that's necessary. I think Dr. Montez would like to make a comment.
Carlos, remind me our inspections, because we talked about this yesterday, about the numbers again in the team there.
Yeah, so there, in the past, some of you've been, in years, you kind of been seeing our numbers in our Orange office where there were, 98 inspections. So like I said, we set timelines with our inspectors. We hired another inspector. Again, the numbers that we received in Southern California, just much higher than Northern California. And so we have brought down all those inspections down. And I think with the last presentation that I gave to the update with Tracy, we were at 14 cases, inspections. So they're doing a really good job going out there, inspecting the dental offices, going back out, re-inspecting if need be. So that's a really good job there what our inspectors are doing in the Orange office.
Thank you, Carlos. And I do want to refer back to the numbers in the prior presentation. There was an indication that our cases moving to the AG's office had decreased. And, just looking at it, you'd think, oh, good, enforcement's going down. Yay. Well, that's not unfortunately the case. The situation is, again, not having the staff, being backed up, backlogged. Those referrals have gone down. However, as I have shared with the board members at our last meeting, our Orangefield office is fully staffed. Very shortly, Sacramento will be fully staffed. So we do anticipate that number increasing, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it. And then we are actually on track to receive about 1,000 more complaints this year. And so we have redirected one of our staff, actually one of our positions, to complaint and compliance to, again, help with the efficiencies so that we can do a thorough job in investigating those complaints, being responsive, and moving them forward to our enforcement division as needed. Thank you.
So if I may just ask a question relative to that, it is my understanding, based on your lecture that I'm working with,
Yes.
we receive about 4,000 complaints a year. That's going to go to 5,000. That's like a 25% increase.
But I also like to think that part of this is because that we are providing good outreach. Individuals, the public, can access the website if they have concerns. Some of these, of course, will turn out not to be violations. But again, I think it's important that we have a mode or a means for consumers to reach out to us.
And we are here for the protection of the public, which is excellent. All right. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. I'm going to have you do your second talk right now so that you don't have to get up and go down, and then Dr. Montez will, I accidentally skipped an area. I'm sorry. Public comment. All right. I was hoping not to do that this time. All right, never mind. Public comment, other board members, we did the board members. Any public comment from people in the room? Here we go. We have someone. Come on up. Good to see you. Right on the bottom, sure. It's behind you, just behind, right there. There you go.
The other ones.
No.
Is this on? Sherry Becker, representing the Dental Assisting Alliance. In the board packet, it's page 101 at the bottom with complaints received, and there's the other category. Wondering if there's data on specifics of what the other might include.
So with that, with the other is, if it does not involve a dentist or registered dental assistants, with the other is usually complaints of non-licensees where they're making complaints against a manager or staff that are not licensed by us. So they're in the other category.
And wondering if we can get, if there would be a possibility to have a breakdown of those categories. Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, because there's so few of them, it's a confidentiality thing.
Thank you.
We keep it generic.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Any other in-person comment? Are there any public comments for individual participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 8B, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to purposefully skip one item on the agenda to allow you to finish, and then we'll bring Dr. Montez up. If you'd like to do item 9B, controlled substance utilization review and evaluation system report.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Fesselfeld. So agenda item 9B is our cures report. As you can see, for the year of 2023, we do have DDSs, DMDs that have been registering in the cure system. So in the beginning of the year of 2023, there were 17,396. And in December, we kind of ended the year at 17,985. So it's really good news that DDSs are still registering with cures. One of the things, as you've seen with our statistics, with our inbound searches, is still documenting 0. And the reason is that platform is still being tested. So therefore, that's why we don't have any statistics for the inbound searches. I'll be glad to answer any questions if anybody has with cures.
Are there any board comments on the report? Dr. Montez.
Yes, and I would like to add too that the December 2023 statistics were provided separate of the board package. They are posted online. There are copies at the door and the members have been provided them. They were just recently received after the board packet was posted.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. Any other board member comments? Is there any public comments on the report? Seeing none, are there any WebEx comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for WebEx comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. We're going to go back up to agenda item number 9A, the diversion program report and statistics. We'll ask Dr. Montez to present this data.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Christy Bell, Assistant Executive Officer of our board, I am presenting Agenda 9A, the Diversion Program Report and Statistics. The Diversion Evaluation Committee program statistics for the quarter ending on December 31st, 2023 are provided in the board packet. These statistics reflect the participant activity in the diversion, or also known as recovery program, and are presented for informational purposes only. There is no action requested on this item. I would also like to add that Christy does attend the Maximus meetings on behalf of the board and works very closely with this program. She is not here today because she is with our board staff and available as needed, whereas I am not right now. But again, she is listening. So again, thank you, Christy, for your contribution to this item, and I'm happy to answer or attempt to answer any questions you may have.
I would suggest that you're very available. You're right here. Do we have any board comments on the diversion report? Seeing none, any in-person comments on this report? Seeing none, are there any comments from those participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Well, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to give you a 17-minute break, 10:15. Let's come back. Let's come back to order. We are now on board agenda item number 10A, an update on dental licensure and permit statistics. We're going to ask Ms. Paige Regali, who is moving up to a new office very shortly and doing both jobs very shortly, to give us an update on that. Good morning again.
Thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld, and good morning to the board members. My name is Paige Regali. I am currently still the Chief of Dental Programs and Customer Support, and I will be presenting agenda item 10A, which begins on page 129 of your meeting materials. First, I wanted to say that we did remove a couple tables and graphs from the statistics that we do report, specifically for canceled and withdrawn applications. This has been removed from our DA statistics as well. We just felt that these statuses are primarily used more for internal cleanup and are not considered to really be beneficial for reporting purposes. The intent of the statistics is really to allow more, or the intent behind this was to allow more focus on the statistics related to the applications of different pathways and to exhibit the workload of the unit. The memo provides application statistics, law and ethics, written examination statistics, and license and permit statistics for the dental licensing and examination unit. On page 134 of the meeting materials, included is the date of the last occupational analysis done by the Office of Professional Examination Services, which was 2018. The target date for the next occupational analysis is 2025, and this is something that is current and ongoing and being worked on. Beginning on page 138 of the meeting materials, the tables provide statistics on current and active dental licenses by county and on the population per dental license from fiscal year 2021-22 through December 31st of 23. Yuba County, again, has the highest population per dentist, and both Sierra and Alpine counties are the lowest populations. There is no action requested, and this concludes the agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regali. Is there any board comment or questions for Ms. Regali? Dr. Chan?
Morning, Paige.
Good morning.
Not that I'm nitpicky, but on page 131 or page 3 of 12, I assume that we're reading the column all the way on the right as a summation of all the column, all the numbers in the row, correct?
It should be correct.
Okay, look at ADEX 23/24,
Oh,
and there's 000, and then it comes to 18. And then on credential 2324, 0000, and it's 1. Are those, can you help us on that one?
They're zeros. So
Okay.
it was an error. So we'll get it fixed and I'll make sure that by the next one, it doesn't show that way. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if I was interpreting it correctly.
No, you were correct. Thank you.
seems to be popular. All right. Any other board? Dr. Montez?
As Ms. Regali mentioned, the dentist occupational analysis due date is 2025. I am pleased to report that the Office of Professional Examination Services that the board works with will be distributing this survey, occupational analysis survey, within the next 2 weeks. So you should receive it in your email. It will take about an hour to 2 hours to complete, and we will be awarding 2 CE units for completing the survey. So it's very important because the data will be used for updating the law and ethics examination, as well as informing the practice. It is developed with licensed dentists under the guidance of test specialists. So the format may appear a little bit awkward, but there is a method to the madness. It's going to ask you to review various task statements, the importance and frequency performed. So we just ask that you do your best for all of those out there that are licensed dentists to please complete that. Thank you.
This is going to be a sample, though?
No, it's going out to all dentists because we have their email addresses. So this is a wonderful opportunity to contribute to the profession. And again, we are awarding 2 hours of CE credit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other board member discussion? Is there any in-person public discussion on the report? Ms. Becker, come on up.
Good morning. Sherry Becker, California Dental Assistants Association. Just a comment that I know the Dental Assisting Council meeting was canceled, but it would be helpful to have the dental assisting statistics also to be inserted in the board materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from members who are participating here? Is there any comment from the public on the WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 10A, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Regali. We're going to move on to item 11A, which is a report on the Commission on Dental Competency Assessment, the Western Regional Examining Board, and the Council on Interstate Testing Agency, the CDCA Reb CETA. I believe Dr. Champagne is with us on the WebEx. Are you out there, Guy?
I am.
All right, good. Good morning to you, and thank you for reporting with us.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld, for letting me present. It's a pleasure. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Guy Champagne. I am Senior Advisor to CWCA Reb CETA, which we will now call CWC just for efficiency, and I'm at the point in my career that senior is in front of everything I do for whatever reason. But
Oh, I understand, sir. Go ahead.
yes. By background, I'm an oral maxillofacial surgeon. So if you ask me questions about general dentistry, I know the words, but I don't know what they mean. But I am going to give you all the statistics, or not all, but a lot of the statistics about the exam. I'm going to be very brief, be very efficient with your time. Right now, the ADEX exam is taken by 99.7% of all dental graduates out of the 7,000 dental graduates, and given in every dental school in the United States. It's given at Dalhousie in Canada. It is the national exam for Jamaica and is now the national exam for Saudi Arabia. So that's the newest ADEX requirement. Also of interest is that every dental school in the United States in which we give the exam has consultant examiners who function as examiners so they can take that information directly back to their schools. It's the same for the dental hygiene examinations. There are no patient-based exams scheduled this year, and as of next year, no patient-based exams will be allowed. In other words, you will not be able to get ADEX status by doing a patient-based exam. And that there were 14 last year. Basically, those 14 were because dental students felt accurately that the patient-based exam was an easier exam, and there's reasons why it is. There were questions. I know the board in California had questions about scoring and our retake rules, and that really is an issue for all dental boards, especially dental boards that have retake rules in their rules. So when CDCA originally, when the ADEX exam was done as, and it still is, a curriculum integrated format exam, we give it earlier in the training program than normal. So our retake rules are for those who are taking it before graduation, and a separate set of rules about failure after graduation. So if you're taking it before graduation, and usually you're taking the endo, pros, and perio in your third year, at the end of the third year, and you take restorative in your second semester of your last year. That is earlier. It is meant to help schools identify people that need remediation. And so a failure is not counted as a failure of the exam until there's been 3 unsuccessful attempts, because that'll all have been within the dental school curriculum. However, if you are a dentist, you graduated dental school, or you're a hygienist, every failure is a failure because you are already deemed competent, you're graduating. So the philosophy behind the exam was different. In fact, there are some schools in the country that move the endo and pros to the end of the second year. It depends how it works in the curriculum. And of course, in UOP, with a 3-year curriculum, that varies. So those are the scoring retake rules. The other interesting issue is, and I learned this morning that you're doing your occupational analysis, and so is ADEX for dentistry. So that began in January with the subject matter experts assembling and developing a survey instrument. That will be accomplished this year and reported in September to the ADEX meeting. So it is a national occupational analysis, but California has to be represented in the occupational analysis as a proportion of the national dentists. So it's going to be roughly 20% of the respondents are going to come from California. We focus at the surveys themselves are really focused on those who have been out 5 years or less, because that's what we want to test, what dentists actually do 5 years or less. So with that, really what I want to encourage is California has its own district in the organization of ADEX. You are one of the 12 directors, but there's only 2 states that have their own directors that are directly appointed, and they're always going to come from that state, and that's California. You also have your always representation on the exam committee. I would encourage you to join ADEX. There are no fees in it, but this is the perfect time. With the occupational analysis, the exam will go through a complete review. It's going to go with a crosswalk and a blueprint development. California really should be at the table. You have 6 dental schools, and really your voice should be heard. There is no cost to the state. Everything you do is funded. And then I also want to encourage you to join CWC. Again, no cost whatsoever. You'll fund the meeting. Your educators are funded to the meeting. They already come now, actually, because we give them at the schools. But it's, again, your voice in the administrative procedures of how we administer the exam and the scheduling of the exam and all of the things in the administrative side. So there are no costs at all. All costs are underwritten by either ADEX or CWC. This is the perfect time because, as I said, the dental exam is going to go through its every 5 to 7 year review. This is a major overhaul. The OSCE will be redone. The hands-on examination will be redone. Next year, we'll address dental hygiene, but this year it's dentistry. So I wanted to keep my report short. That's all of the updates. The rest of the parts of the exam is unchanged, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Champagne. Well, as it turns out, we are going to join your board, so you can take that back, and we say thank you for the invitation, and we're happy to respond.
And we're happy to have you.
Okay, sir. That's good. Are there any other board comments on Dr. Champagne's report? None. Thank you. In-house public members who would like to comment on the report? I see none again. Are there any WebEx participants who would like to comment on the report? Will the DCA moderator please open the lines for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 11A, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, Dr. Champagne. I guess we will be seeing you at the next meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right, sir. You take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
We will now move on to item 12A, general anesthesia and sedation permits, inspections and evaluation of statistics. Ms. Olney is working her way to the front desk here and we'll give her the report. Thank you. Good morning again, Ms. Olney.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Felsenfeld and members of the board. I'll be presenting agenda item 12A, which begins on page 142 of your meeting materials. Or I'm sorry, 143. You will find statistical tables of the results of the general anesthesia, medical general anesthesia, and moderate sedation, on-site inspections and evaluations for Q1 and Q2 of the current fiscal year. The information is separated by permit type and also includes data for the 4 previous fiscal years. The information on page 152 includes the current number of evaluators, although I do want to note that I have been doing a recent audit of the evaluator pool. We have had several evaluators who have decided to retire, so that number will change for the next meeting. And we are actively recruiting for new evaluators. No action is requested, but I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Any board member comments on Ms. Olney's report? Dr. Lirin.
Hello, thank you for the report. I just wanted to mention that I was going through the website yesterday for the dental board, and I still saw the permit for the conscious sedation available there. So I think that needs to be removed. I just saw it last night.
Was this
The permit?
the application for the initial permit? Okay, I will take a look at the website.
Yes.
From what I understood, should have all been removed in 2022.
No, it's still there. I just saw it.
Okay, if possible, if I could reach out to you if need
Yes,
some.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Regali, and thank you, Dr. Lirin. Any other board comment on the report? Seeing none, is there any in-person comment on the report? Seeing none, are there any WebEx participants who would like to comment on this report? DCA moderator, please facilitate the line for WebEx comments.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. I do see we have a Dr. Priya Ganji with a question. So Dr. Priya, just a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. And Dr. Priya Ganji, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, we'll try that one more time. So Dr. Priya Ganji, if you see a prompt to unmute yourself, go ahead and select that. I'll try that one more time. Dr. Priya Ganju, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. You are muted.
Hello, thank you, members of the board. I had a question regarding the on-site inspections and the evaluation due to the short value. What plan?
Moderator, the reception is very, very sketchy here. We can't hear what Dr. Priya is saying.
Okay, I'll type it.
It's garbled.
Unfortunately, that is on her end, so that's not something I can help with, but she did type her question in the Q&A, which was, how do we see what the current test consists of? So that was her, she actually typed that into the Q&A.
I think that that's a very broad question. I'm not sure what she's really asking for, but if she wants to send an email to the board in general with that, someone will look into it and get back to her.
Yes, they can either email dentalboard@dca.ca.gov, or if this is related to anesthesia, they can email the anesthesia unit at au.program@dca.ca.gov.
Could we ask if Dr. Priya would indicate whether or not they got those addresses? dentalboard@dca.com, is that what it is? Dental board?
At DCA.
Okay, yeah, at dca.gov.
.ca.gov.
.ca.gov. Okay, dentalboard@dca.ca.gov.
Okay, and she did indicate that she was referring to the national board exam.
That's out of order for what we're talking about right now. So
Okay.
it's a similar question, she can put it in and we'll try to get her some information.
All right. Well, in that case, I see no further requests for public comments, so I return the floor back to you.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Olney, I think you've got some more to go with us, and that is the 12B, the update regarding the board implementation of SB 501.
Yes, correct. Thank you again, Dr. Felsenfeld. This agenda item begins on page 153 of your meeting materials. We have gone over this information for a couple of years now, but we are still in the midst of implementing the SB 501 changes. Some of the notable changes that I wanted to mention were the progress of issuing of new permits and the expiration of existing permits. I do want to note that the table that includes the number of applications received, approved and deficient applications, I wanted to give you an update on the total number of applications that have been approved. To date, since the implementation of the new regulations, we've approved 55 initial applications for general anesthesia permit, 67 applications for pediatric endorsement for general anesthesia permit, 28 initial applications for medical general anesthesia permit, 50 applications for pediatric endorsement for medical general anesthesia, 367 initial applications for moderate sedation permit, 25 applications for pediatric endorsement for moderate sedation, and 246 applications for pediatric minimal sedation. I do want to note that board staff have been working with the Office of Information Services to update the existing conscious sedation and oral conscious sedation for minors permits. These permits can no longer be renewed after January 1 of 2022. So we're working with OIS to cancel those permits automatically once they expire, rather than leaving them in a delinquent status, which has a more negative effect from what we've heard from the licensee. They don't like to see that it says delinquent. So we are working with OIS to cancel those so that they come out of the system. Again, this is informational and no action is requested, but I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Olney. Are there any questions from members of the board? I see none. Any comments or questions from the public members who are with us? I see none again. So those on WebEx, if the DCA moderator will facilitate their comments, we can hear if there are any out there.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public has a comment on agenda item 12B, feel free to type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Olney, we're going to go on to, I think it's 12C, the discussion and possible action regarding appointment of general anesthesia, medical general anesthesia, and moderate sedation permit evaluators. Now, last time, we had about 18 of them or some large number,
Yes.
and we got through that pretty well with the help of the board. And we're going to go through 8. Now, we have to do these individually because each one gets its own action. We can't
Yes,
just do it
correct.
as a group, and I understand that. So we will do that. So I guess what we're going to have to do is ask for, how are we going to get, we need to ask them by name. All right. So, and that's going to be in the report. What page is that on so I can get to it myself, please?
That begins on page 159 of the report.
159. All right.
And I do want to mention that specifically for the general anesthesia permit holders, some of them have requested to evaluate both general anesthesia and moderate sedation permit holders. There are some evaluators who prefer to just evaluate general anesthesia permit holders. So there is a difference in the request for each of those.
The requests are still for general anesthesia at least. That doesn't
Yes.
mean they cannot do moderate sedation if they elect to do that. Is that correct?
Correct. And this may be a question for Tara if they need to specifically be appointed for moderate sedation or if they're appointed for, and I only mention this because
I saw
last
that one.
year we did appoint all of our existing anesthesia permit holders to do moderate sedation permits.
They don't, I would imagine they don't have to do it if they don't want to, though.
So the requirement for moderate sedation is that to administer it or order the administration, you have to have either a general anesthesia permit or a moderate sedation permit. So, if you appoint these individuals who already have a general anesthesia permit, they could be used for evaluating moderate sedation permit applications. For these individuals, since they have specifically, for the ones who have indicated what types of evaluation they're applying for, most likely we would want to just appoint them for those positions, but potentially in the future, if you needed to, if you were really low on moderate sedation permit evaluators, you could reach out to these folks and see if they want to go ahead and evaluate for moderate sedation as well.
So they're eligible to do it. It's at their discretion, though.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
That's clear. All right. Well, why don't we start? I can start off by reading the names of the people, if you like, and we'll go with Dr. Chu. And what we're going to do with each one, we'll bring up the application. If there's anything special about it, we can talk about it. And then if not, someone will make a motion to approve them. We'll get a second. We'll have a board member discussion on the motion. We'll go for public comment, and then we'll complete that process and move on to the next one. Okay. And Ms. Only if you have something to add to it, that's fine too. So let's start off. We have Dr. Brian Chu, who is asking to be a general anesthesia permit holder. That's, I'm sorry, evaluation. He's a dental anesthesiologist. Actually, we should call them dentist anesthesiologists throughout. That is what their preferred title is. So dentist anesthesiologist from Loma Linda, and he wants to do evaluations in the South. Any discussion on Dr. Chu's application? And we have a motion to accept him. Dr. Chan, who's seconding it? Dr. Medina, I saw your hand go up. Is that correct? Yes, it did. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Medina. It sort of went up. All right. So we have Dr. Chan and Dr. Medina. Is there any further board discussion on this? Seeing none, we have public comment from members in the audience. Seeing none, we have WebEx public comment from members on WebEx. Moderator, please facilitate comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand or displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please state the motion and call the roll?
Yes, the motion is to appoint Dr. Brian Shu as evaluator for on-site inspection. That's it. Okay. Chan,
Can I?
Chan, I, Felsenfeld,
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I, Forge,
Forge, aye.
Forge, I, Larin, I, McKenzie,
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I, Medina,
Medina, aye.
Medina, I, Molina,
Molina, aye.
Molina, I, Olage,
Foggy, aye.
Olage, I, Pacheco,
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I, Thakur,
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I, you,
UI.
you, motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Larin. We now move on to applicant number 2, Dr. George Jaber, who is a dentist anesthesiologist and requesting to do GA and MS permits. Any discussion about his application? Seeing none, we'll take a motion to Dr. Chan, a motion, and
We
Dr.
second.
Larin is
Yeah.
seconding. Okay. Any further board discussion on the motion? I'm sorry, Dr. Larin. All right. And any further discussion on the motion from the board? Seeing none, is there any public comment from members in the room? Seeing none, is there any public comment from those on WebEx? Facilitate the comments, please, DCA evaluator, moderator, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please read the motion and take the roll?
Motion is to appoint Dr. George Jaber as evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program. Chan,
Aye.
Chan, I, Felsenfeld,
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, I, Forge,
Forge, aye.
Forge, I, Larin, I, McKenzie,
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I, Medina,
Medina, aye.
Medina, I, Molina,
Molina, aye.
Molina, I, Olage, Olage, I, Pacheco,
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I, Thakur,
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I, you,
UI.
I, the motion passes.
Thank you. We're going to move on to number 3, Dr. Dr. Jacob Piotrowski, who is an oral and maxillofacial surgeon requesting a GA and MS permit for evaluation. Dr. Pacheco, Ms. Pacheco has moved it, and Dr.
You was
Looking
second.
at me, Dr. Yu is going to second that. So any further board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, is there any in-person comment on this individual's application and the motion? Seeing none, is there any WebEx comment on this? DCA moderator, please open the microphones for WebEx evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Larin, would you do me a favor, though, just for the record, read what they're asking to be evaluated, approved for, just so it's in the record. We have it, but it'd be nice to have that in the recorded record as well. Thank you. So we are now considering Dr. Piotrowski, is that correct? So go ahead, Dr. Larin, please read it back and we'll take the roll.
And to clarify, Dr. Larin, it's in the last sentence of each.
Yeah, it's right there.
It'll specify what type of evaluation they want to do.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ready for the motion? To appoint Jakub Piotrowski for evaluator and for GA and MS permit and for on-site inspection and evaluation. Chan, I, Felsenfeld,
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I, Forge,
Forge, aye.
Forge, I, Larin, I, McKenzie,
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I, Medina,
Medina, aye.
Medina, I, Molina,
Molina, aye.
Molina, I, Olage,
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I, Pacheco,
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I, Thakur,
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I, you,
UI.
motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Larin. We move on to number 4, Dr. Ali Putrakal. He is an oral and maxillofacial surgeon applying for evaluation for GA and MS permits. Any discussion about this application? Seeing none, is there a motion? Dr. Olagi moves it.
I
Thank you.
second.
And who is seconding? Dr. Molina, thank you. And we're now ready for additional board comment on the motion now that it's before us. Seeing none, in-person comments on this motion? Seeing none. WebEx comments on the motion. Ms. Becker, are you coming up to speak to that? No, okay, thank you. WebEx comments, will the DCA moderator please facilitate the lines for comment?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Dr. Lorin, will you please read back the motion and take the roll?
The motion is to approve Dr. Ali Petrucco for GA and MS permit evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program. Chen?
Jan, I.
Chen, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Chaco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Uri.
Thakur, I. And you?
UI.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. We're now up to number 5, Dr. Akemi Arzuman, who is applying to be an evaluator in moderate sedation. Is there any comment on the application of this individual? Seeing none, is there a motion? Dr. Lorin moves it. Dr. Medina, Ms. Medina seconds it. You have before you the motion to approve the application of this individual. Is there any further board discussion? Seeing none, is there any in-person comment? Seeing none, DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for WebEx people to have an option to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, will you please read the motion and take the vote?
To appoint Dr. Akemi Arzuman for MS permit as evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program. Chen?
Jan, I.
Chen, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco?
Chaco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Uri.
Thakur, I. You?
UI.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you. Dr. Yvette Carrillo is applying to be an evaluator in moderate sedation. Applications before you. Does anyone have any comments on this individual's application? Dr. Lorin.
Yes, Dr. Carrillo is from San Diego, and in her application, she wrote down that she's a pedodontist, but she's actually a periodontist. I wanted to bring that to your attention. But maybe she just, marked the wrong box, but she's definitely a periodontist.
And the rest of the application was in order, Ms. Only, do you know? She's qualified to do moderate sedation? Does it matter what she
Yes, she
accidentally
is.
maybe checks off a box wrong? Is there any discussion about it? It's all good. She's capable of doing what she needs to do, even if she's a periodontist versus a pedodontist. That's the question. You good with that? Okay. Good.
Yeah, there's no requirement for a particular type of practice to obtain the permits. You just have to, qualify using the requirements laid out in statute. And it appears that she already has a moderate sedation permit, and that's all that's required to become an evaluator for moderate sedation permit applicants.
So we are okay with that. Thank you. Just want to clarify that. I probably was just a clerical error on her part, but that's okay. All right, so we are now looking at that, and where are we now? We're still on board conversation. Any other board conversation? Dr. Chan?
Does the pediatric endorsement come into play when someone applies as a periodontist versus general dentist or pediatric dentist?
You can speak to that. I mean, yes, is the short answer. There's always a pediatric.
Not in the case of the on-site inspection and evaluation.
Oh, that's true. It's only for the applicant for the, or permit, not for to be an evaluator. Okay. We got that? All right. Any other board comments on this? Nice to see a motion to accept this applicant. Anybody want to raise their hand? I'll do it. I'll move that we accept, this is Dr. Carrillo, is that correct? That we move to accept Dr. Carrillo's application to be an evaluator in moderate sedation. And who's going to second that? No one? All right, Ms. Medina, we'll get you going there. All right, good. Thank you, Ms. Medina. And we're good with that. Any further board discussion on the motion as it's before us? Seeing none, is there any in-person comment on this motion that's on the floor? See none, we'll go to WebEx people. If there's any WebEx concerns, would you facilitate the lines for WebEx, please, moderator?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Board Secretary, please read the motion and take the vote.
To appoint Dr. Yvette Carrillo as MS Permit Evaluator for On-Site Inspection and Evaluation Program. Chen.
Chan, aye.
And I, Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge.
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage.
Olagi,
Olage, aye. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur.
Aye.
Or aye. You.
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. We're now moving on to number 7. If I'm not mistaken, it's Dr. Kapson Hong, who is applying to be a moderate sedation evaluator. Any discussion on the application of this individual? Any questions on the board? No, I'd like a motion then to approve this individual.
You motion.
You moved it. Thank you. Second on this side, we have Dr. Larin. Very good. We have before us the motion. Any further board discussion on the motion? Seeing none, any in-person comments on the applicant's motion? Seeing none, any WebEx comments on this motion? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for WebEx people to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Larin, will you please read the motion and take the vote?
To appoint Dr. Kapson Hong as MS Permit as evaluator for the on-site inspection team. And Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge.
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Larin, I. McKenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage.
Olagi,
Olage, I. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur.
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, I. You.
You, aye.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you. The last one this day is Dr. James Rohr, who is applying he's applying to be a moderate sedation evaluator. Is there any board discussion on the applicant? Seeing none, I would like a motion to accept this individual's application. We're getting Dr. Pacheco, Ms. Pacheco. All right, I'll second that because I think we're getting tired here. All right, I'll second that. We have before us a motion to accept this applicant as an evaluator. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, how about discussion from people in the room? Once again, seeing none, and board, the DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment on this applicant and this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Dr. Lorin, let's take the roll and read the motion, please.
Motion is to approve Dr. James Rohr as for the MS permit evaluator for the on-site inspection and evaluation program. Chen.
Chan, I.
Chen, I. Felsenfeld.
Aye, sorry, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Yeah.
Forge.
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie. McKenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage.
Olagi, aye.
Olage, aye. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Takur.
Or aye.
Takur, aye. You.
UI.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. I think that completes the long list this time. We had 18 last time, we have 8 this time. Most of these are converting from conscious sedation evaluators to moderate sedation evaluators as they need to, but we have 2 new ones as well. I know Dr. Witcher's out there, and this has been a problem we've had, but we're constantly trying to increase, especially since we have a few retirees.
Yes.
So let's see if we can get some more down the line, but thank you so much for all this. A lot of work.
Thank you.
All right. Before we go on to the next item, which will be, I guess, 13, if I'm not mistaken. I've been mistaken. It's perfectly fine. All right, 13. I want to take a point of personal privilege to say hello and recognize Mr. Anthony Lum, who's sitting in the back of the room. He's the EO of the dental hygiene, the dental hygiene board. He's with us. He's been with us all the time. We have no report this time, but he is with us, and thank you. And thank you for joining us, Mr. Lum. It's always good to see you. Let's move on to item 13, a discussion and possible action on board, council, and committee member administrative policy and procedure manual. Dr. Montez, we have a number of different documents that we're going to have to get through today. So let's start with the administrative manual. Dr. Montez will present this.
Okay, again, good morning. Tracy Montez, Executive Officer. This is an internal document that the board has. It was revised back in May 2021, and we have been working on it for the past year or so, updating it to conform to different policies, procedures, things like that that have occurred. Also taking into account just how our operations have been unfolding. This is a very important policy and procedure manual that's used to help inform not only new board members, but to remind current board members of different protocols. And I'd like to acknowledge our legal counsel, Ms. Welch, who did help me with this as needed. And so you have before you 2 documents. In the board meeting packet is the almost proposed final version. I'm going to tell you there are typos and formatting areas, but once we get the board approval, we will then move it to our editor who will clean it up and address any typos, things like that. So that's in the board packet, and then also provided and posted online is the red line version, as we say, where there's some track changes. Most of the track changes are captured there, not necessarily all of them, because I got a little carried away. Forgot that I need to provide the board for your ease, the track changes to help facilitate your review. So what I'd like to do is go through page by page, and I'm going to mostly refer to the red line version. And then I'm going to point out where the more substantive edits are. And so I would say if you have any questions, to please stop me, and we'll just start with the board members first. And then after we get through, we can then move forward with, I guess, public comment and so forth. So
once the resolution is before you.
correct. Thank you. So again, looking at page 4 of the redlined version document, you can just see we were cleaning up the codes and we removed some of the definitions because they were not applicable as they were. On page 5, the general rules of conduct, we wanted to emphasize not only confidentiality, but security of documents and information. We also wanted to, again, highlight equality and equitably, because those are very important and distinct terms. So we wanted to incorporate that into our general rules of conduct.
Just as a point of moving through this without getting too messed up on it, can we stop you at any given time? that
Yes,
you're saying
please.
Something to
Yes.
board members, if you have some concern about some of these are substantive somewhat, Some of these are not, but if
Right.
there's any question, now's the time to ask them. So
And I'm going to go through the pages and not necessarily look up when it's not necessarily a substantive change. So if I fail to look up on a page that you would like, please just interrupt and I will do that. So again, moving on to chapter 2, where it talks about board, council, and committee meetings. Again, we added some clarification of codes, updating the codes on here. We also did include that we have right now, we are mandated to meet once in the San Francisco Bay Area and once in Southern California. We do have a legislative proposal, though, to clean that up to give us a little bit more flexibility on where we meet. But we did at this time want to include that. Moving on to page 7. This is where we get into the role of our committees, and you'll see a lot of red here. And that portion we actually moved up from a later section. We wanted to have clarification of the committees and how they're established before we actually talk about the committees. So that this is just a reorganization. And then you can see as we go into mentioning the statutory and standing committees, we clarified the names of them. We also added our Sunset Review Committee because we feel that's important to always have that in there and included. And then again, we went through and updated some of the codes. And I see that Ms. Welch has her hand up.
For the board's consideration, I'm wondering if we should change the title of the Sunset Review Report Committee to just be the Sunset Review Committee. Okay, thank you.
that would make sense because it's an ongoing thing. We have a report every so many years, but we're always looking at that.
Thank
Any
you.
objections to that
Noted.
at all? Just take that out editorially, I think.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welch.
So moving on to page 8, again, some minor cleanup. And we did add in here something that's very important underneath quorum. We did include to determine action on a motion, a majority of the members present and voting will be counted. So we wanted to clarify that. And then also agenda items. We did clean that up from just sort of a random list to something that is more consistent with how we move forward these days with agendas. Moving on to page 9, again, under closed session, we did do some cleanup there, the third bullet, and that was under guidance with our council. And Ms. Welch, you have a question?
Just a comment. I think we're adding a sentence, settlement agreements for the renovation surrender. That's supposed to be revocation.
Yes, we're not doing remodeling, right?
That should be, we're not, so it's revocation at the word. That's
Thank
again,
you.
a typo.
Mhm.
Spell check.
Yes. Okay, and then again, there's some general cleanup under notice of meetings. We go into recordings. We did actually add the specific language out of the government code under recording of public meetings. And then again, just adding some Bagley-Keene and updating how we reference our sections. Page 11, updated reference materials throughout on this page. We have a travel guide that's actually used, not memoranda. And then again, page 12 is just change in formatting. Page 13, the addition here under election of process, we are clarifying that we elect the president, vice president, and secretary, and that members have an option of voting a yes, no, or abstaining. So that was added. Page 14, that paragraph again was the paragraph that I mentioned earlier where we moved it to where we talk about the actual committees themselves. We go into attendance of the meetings. and then through the different roles of the president, the various officers. And again, just some cleanup here. Really here taking out direct contact with the media out of the president. We did on page 15, we removed the strategic plan from the vice president. Again, that is something you're welcome to put back in. It's just a laborious process. It's expanded over time. And so that's why I kind of put the burden back on the board. But again, that's at the board's pleasure to decide. I did remove the secretary from the executive committee because we don't want to have concerns with Bagley-Keene. So we have the president and the vice president are part of the executive committee. And again, the rest of it is just some general changes throughout page 15, 16, moving into page 17 under board administration and staff. Again, just some clarifying language of we're talking about the governor's administration, California state legislature. We added using solid when we talk about strategic planning. Page 18, again, clarifying how we address media inquiries, just some minor cleanup. We did under legal opinions, clarify the wording there based on our legal counsel. And again, making sure that those that might possibly request legal opinions understand we don't do that. The board does not do this for individuals. If we do any kind of legal opinion, it is for the public and it is posted. So we just wanted to clarify that language. Ms. Welch?
So page 18, under legal opinions, toward the end of the last sentence, it begins new text, any may or may not, change any to and.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on page 19, again, reference changes, wording changes. We also, you'll notice throughout this document, we did go to gender neutral language. So we got rid of a lot of his and hers. Again, being respectful for new policies and procedures. Okay, so here's where we get to some more of the substantive edits. Under other policies and procedures, chapter 6, page 20. This is where we've seen a lot of revisions with regard to mandated trainings. And so we've updated the correct titles of the trainings, how they are administered. You know, the department has our LMS system, and you all have become very acquainted with that system and how we do most of our training, not all of it, but most of our training. And so we went in there and updated that to reflect the changes of how you take that training, including board member orientation. That's been updated, board member onboarding and mentoring. This is new. And again, this comes from board members, multiple members, including Dr. Chan and some of our others. We've had conversations about this at prior board meetings about having a more formal process for onboarding and mentoring. And so we wanted to make sure that was included in the policy. So we have some narrative here and then some resources. So that this is a completely new addition to the manual. Any concerns, comments about that?
I would just like to ask, and I'll ask Ms. Welsh, sunset reports at the very bottom, sunset review process. Would you like to see, I mean, again, sunset reports are not written but every 5 years or something, but next to the last one in that list of under board member onboarding and mentoring.
So that's the purpose of the reports, is so that they can go onto the website and actually look through our documents,
Okay.
and read
That's
them.
part of the orientation.
Yeah,
then.
like a newsletter,
Sure.
like a PowerPoint, our strategic plan. So it's more of a tangible type of resource.
Okay. They would use that as opposed to worrying about doing that. I get, that makes some sense because.
Okay. Thank you. And again, page 22, again, section cleanups, formatting, Page 23, no substantive edits here. Again, just a lot of gender neutral language changes. Moving into page 24, again, just some general word changes. And page 25, very similar things, a couple additions with regard to codes and clarification from our council about midway through there, clarifying the board members' role in ex parte communications. So with that, again, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have about this manual.
Is there any board member discussion about what we have before us, changes or the like? Do I see any hands? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the manual with its changes as presented? Dr. Chan, is that what you're doing? Dr. Chan has moved that. I'll second
Second.
that, or Dr. Yu has seconded, that's fine. So we have before us the manual in red line, but that will become black line when we're done. And edits, minor typos and edits through the editor. That's perfectly fine. That'll be acceptable. That's what it is. Any further board discussion on that? Seeing none, is there any public member comment on this manual and this motion to accept this? Seeing none, is there any WebEx comment? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for the WebEx comments.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 13, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor to you.
Thank you. What is it, Dr. Molina? In the microphone, please.
I see that, so we changed, the 30 days to 45 days, to submit.
Yes, and that's because of all the posting requirements and the review. So we really do need items submitted sooner than later. Because literally once this meeting is done, we have a debrief meeting and we start getting ready for May. So if we have something come at 30 days, it's not going to give us enough time to vet it, prepare it, review it, post it.
Thank you for.
You're welcome.
So I believe we're ready to take a vote on this at this point. Dr. Lorin,
Yeah,
read the motion and take the vote, please.
motion is to adopt the revised board, council, and committee member administrative policy and procedure manual. Okay. Chan?
Chan, I.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I. Ladin, I. McKenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
McKenzie, I. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I. Pacheco? Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Or aye.
Thakur, I. You?
UI.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you. A lot of work on that. Thank you, guys, for staff for doing that all and cleaning. It's a constant, never stops, but that's great. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to Mr. Bruggeman. Want to come up? We're going to be talking about item 14A, status update on pending regulations.
Thank you, President Feld. Thank you, President Felsenfeld and board members. I am speaking about the memo that starts on page 195 of the board meeting materials, updating on the regulatory packages that are in process but are not being brought before the board for a specific vote or action at this time. I wanted to start with the comprehensive dental assisting regulations. And this was the package that the board recently decided to rescind the previously approved language, handed over to a two-person working group. That working group has met since the last board meeting, and the chair and vice chair of the Dental Assisting Council are the two members of that working group, and Vice Chair Fowler met with board staff in January to discuss strategy for how to approach the review and revision of the dental assisting regulations. There are 5 articles in the dental assisting portion of the regulations, and one of those is already a package in process, which I'll speak to later in this memo concerning dental assisting examinations. Of the remaining material, the next steps that the working group has planned are to prepare what's called a Section 100 package, which means a regulatory proposal that is making changes that are non-substantive due to repeals or other changes in the law as specific to this material. There are sections in the dental assisting regulations which still refer to the Permit Reform Act of 1981, which has been repealed. And so that would be a relatively straightforward regulatory package that we would anticipate bringing to the board at the May meeting. The next step in that process would be to develop a package focusing on the regulations in Article 3 of the dental assisting regulations, which are specific to applications for licensure for the various dental auxiliary licenses that the board is responsible for. And we would anticipate, the goal is to have that ready for May. That may be later in the year, but the intent is to have that ready for the board's consideration in May. The working group will be meeting again in March. I want to move on to give a brief update on there are 2 packages, the package regarding replacement licenses combined with the update to our inactive and active license application form. That package has been filed with the Office of Administrative Law following the 45-day public comment period. We had received no comments at that point, and we expect a response from OAL on that package by the end of this month. Similarly, the AB 107 regulations, which refer to temporary licensure for qualified spouses or domestic partners of military members, that package has also been filed with OAL, and we would anticipate a response from the office by March 4th. Then we have our package concerning updates to the board's uniform standards, and that package is currently under review with our Regulations Council and with the DCA Budgets Office. Same with the package concerning dental assisting examinations that's currently under review, as well as the proposal that was approved at the November meeting to update our forms for application by licensure. Is that a relatively rapid update report from me? So if there are any questions from the board, I'd certainly entertain those at this time.
Thank you. Any board member comments on this? This is a non-action item, just informational for us. but,
Exactly. No
any
action is being
questions
requested.
or comments by the board? Dr. Montez.
Again, I would just like to highlight the progress on the dental assisting comprehensive rulemaking regulations. We did, of course, not have a dental assisting council meeting today, which I will elaborate on later, but I want to emphasize that we are moving forward on this, taking it article by article, not necessarily in order. We have the one package that's already moving through with regard to the examinations, and then we now have this piece of it. So we're very excited to hopefully show you some excellent progress at the May board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. Any other comments on the report or questions for Mr. Bruggeman from the board? Seeing none, is there any in-person comments, public comments that we can consider? Seeing none, again, any WebEx comments, will the DCA moderator please facilitate the comments from members via WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. We have another, you still have more to go, Mr. Bruggeman, and the next one's
Absolutely.
going to take a little bit of time. We have lunch coming in at 11:30 allegedly, Ms. Moran. Taryn, is it coming at 11:30? All right, so, and that's only 7 or 8 minutes. So I think what we're going to do is give you extended lunch today because I'm in a good mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can you can go eat. Yes, you can hold on for a little bit and we'll come back, let's see, 11:30, about 12:15. About 12:15, we'll come back and then we'll pick it up with you and the rest of your report. Okay, sir?
Understood. Thank you, President.
Is that okay?
Felsenfeld.
Everyone, so we'll adjourn till, well, no, excuse me, we'll recess till 12:15. Almost did that. All right, thank you very much. And we'll wait for lunch in about 7 or 8 minutes. Good afternoon. Welcome back, everyone. We will pick up where we left off, and this is going to be item 14B, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
It is.
Brueggemann was speaking before we stopped for lunch, and we're going to pick it up from there. If you will, Mr. Brueggemann, just tell us what you need here.
Thank you, President Felsenfeld. I am David Bruggeman, the legislative and regulatory specialist for the board. Item 14B concerns the board's regulations for infection control. We're bringing forth 2 action items for the board. Basically, the board is obligated to review and, if necessary, update its regulations on infection control on a regular basis in consultation with the Dental Hygiene Board. And the last time that the board developed a package was in 2018. There's been enough time since that package was approved by the board that we believe that language needs to be updated. And as a result, we're asking for 2 things. We're asking first for the board to rescind the previously approved language so that we can proceed with a new package. And the second item would be to for the board to appoint a 1 or 2 person working group in order to facilitate development of that language for a new package in consultation with staff, both from the dental board and the dental hygiene board.
Okay. So is there any board discussion about doing this? I have a question to begin with, so let me start since I'm here. We're going to rescind the old language before we have new language to put in? Is that
So
correct? That's what it sounds like.
we are not changing existing regulations. The board has previously approved language for a rulemaking that has not been filed.
Huh.
And so in order, basically, we need to clear the decks, so to speak.
So
And that's why we're asking for a rescinding of the previously approved language. We are
rulemaking,
not changing regulations at this time.
rulemaking 2.0. Something
Sure,
like
sure.
that. Okay, so we're just trying to clean up what we have and get to a better place is what you're
Right.
suggesting.
The
and
idea would
time.
be that at a future meeting, based on the work of this working group, we would have new language updated and in consensus with the dental hygiene board so that we
So,
can initiate a
Are
rulemaking.
we clear on all of that? And we're going to need a motion for this to,
First on the rescission, to the rescinding,
correct,
and then second on the working
is the
group.
new one. All right, so do we have any discussion? Dr. Montez?
Yes, and I would like to point
Mhm.
out that the proposed motions are on page 200.
Yep, in the follow. All right, so do we have any board discussion on proposing a motion? Number one, we'll deal with one at a time. The first motion to rescind the existing language. Is there any discussion? Pacheco, do you have something you were reaching for your microphone or you're okay? Oh, you want to make the motion? Well, if no one wants to say anything, knock yourself out. It's good. We can make a motion and we'll discuss it more even so. Go ahead.
So I move to rescind the approval of the proposed rulemaking language approved by the board on May 16, 2018 to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1005.
Is there a second? Olagi seconds that. Thank you. Is there board discussion on this to rescind the old language? Seeing none, is there any discussion by public comment in the room with us today? I see, wait, Mr. Lama, you coming up to speak? Go ahead. You got those two?
Good afternoon, President Felsenfeld, board members. I just want to thank you for rescinding this existing regulatory language. Just a little history on this. In 2018, when one of my board members, who's considered the dental realm guru on infection control, she acknowledged to me that this language was incomplete and should not move forward. And I will confer with her about what suggestions she may have in moving forward. And I would just like to offer, our collaborative efforts to have this regulatory section improved and finalized so that way everybody is on the same page. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment from members in the room? Seeing none, is there any comment from WebEx? And will the DCA moderator please facilitate comment from those participating via WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand or display instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Board Secretary, would you like to take the vote, please?
The motion was to rescind approval of the proposed rulemaking language approved by the board on May 16, 2018 to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1005. Chan?
Chan, aye.
And I, Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, yes.
Joseph, I, Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, I, Larin, I, Mackenzie?
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, I, Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, I, Molina? Molina, I, Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, I, Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I, Takur? Takur, I, you? You, I, motion passes.
Thank you. We now go to the second motion.
Right, and this would be the appointment of a 1 or 2 person working group. And just the size of the group is to facilitate compliance with the open meeting laws. There will be an opportunity for public comment on any proposed language that the board brings forward.
Thank you. We need to make a motion to do this, huh?
Yes, you have. But you never.
No, I can just appoint it. Yeah. I'm, as board president, I am entitled to and responsible for appointing working groups. And I am going to appoint Ms. Pacheco, our person sitting in the hygiene seat right here, and also Kara Miyazaki, who is the chair of the DAC, as the 2 people to work with you in this arena. And Ms. Miyazaki has consented to this. And Dr. Pacheco, Ms. Pacheco is consenting as we speak. So we're all good with that. All right. And that will be an appointment for a working group. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bruggeman. We got more?
Well, not on this specific item. We would simply want to move on to the next item.
That's correct.
And that next item, 14C, concerns proposed modified text for the currently proposed regulatory language to adopt amendments to Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 1018, regarding the board's the board's disciplinary guidelines. I've been joined by our Regulations Counsel, Christy Shields, who along with, I'm sorry. No, that's all right. I'm easily distracted today. I apologize. But Ms. Shields and my board counsel, Tara Welch, worked diligently on this language for much longer than I've been employed with the board. So wanted to defer to their expertise in terms of the specific changes that we're looking for. This particular package was originally noticed and went through a 45-day comment period, which closed on November 14th, 2023. There were no adverse comments received, so there's no comments the board is being asked to consider at this time. There have been areas that we'll discuss momentarily where we believe that were amendments to modifications to the proposed text would be warranted in order to further clarify and specify specific sections of the language and provide additional detail for the benefit of licensees and the general public. If you were to look at the specific language that of the disciplinary guidelines, that starts on page 217 of the board meeting materials. And the modified text that we're talking about, that is everything that is highlighted. Additions that are modified text would be in double underlined. Strikeouts would be double strikeouts and highlighted, reflecting deletions that we're suggesting for the modified text. The board memo goes into a little bit of detail here. Additionally, we would request that the actual regulatory text is updated to reflect the new revision date of the disciplinary guidelines. So the specific changes, again, are detailed in the memo, and we do have one addition that has been pointed out since this memo was and the board meeting materials were made available. And that refers to the language in term 19 of supervised practice.
What page is that in?
Yeah, if you go to 247 in the meeting materials,
Can you say what page of the guidelines you're?
I
referring to?
apologize, just a moment.
It's page 246 of the meeting materials
Thank
and
you.
page 27 of the guidelines.
So if you were to look in the first paragraph of the supervised practice term, you'll see two highlighted sections. The first one reads, of dentistry / general anesthesia or deep sedation / moderate sedation / oral constant sedation on adult patients / minimal sedation. And then the second highlighted section is effectively the same language. What we want to add here is to insert before minimal sedation at the very end of each of those highlighted sections, we want to insert pediatric. And that's to make this language consistent with other modified text suggestions that we are proposing for the board. If there's anything else that I haven't captured here, thank you. But again, the specifics that we're looking to deal with here help to provide additional clarity and specific details for particular provisions of the law, of the proposed update to the disciplinary guidelines. If there are specific questions that any board members have at this time about modifications that we are proposing, this would be the opportunity to discuss them.
Ms. Shield, did you want to speak? And good afternoon. Welcome back.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late.
No, you're fine.
But anyway, question to add.
Your microphone on. I don't know if I can hear you that well.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, so board counsel has suggested that on page 27, we add the word pediatric before minimal sedation in 2 places in the supervised practice term, but I believe there were other sections, or was that the only change they were recommending?
That's the only change. With that change, it makes it consistent with other uses of the term pediatric minimal sedation that's already included in
And
the
in the
revised
law as
version.
well?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be the only tweak we would recommend to what you have in the meeting
To
materials.
the entire document.
Yes.
So we're looking at one change.
Would add just 2
But
instances of
I've read through it. I
pediatric.
mean, there's other things that you've changed, but that's all non-substantive.
This is what's being, we're asking to add subsequent to what was printed and posted.
Yes, okay, so this is going to be an additional part. I think without objection that we could probably just put that in it, because that's the levels that we talk about. These are the different licensing, if that's okay with council, or Dr. Montez is going to say something, or?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, it is the highlighted areas that have since been changed. Yes.
So effectively, if the board approves these revisions, this version, it would be as revised today.
So we would look at motion B in your meeting materials.
We are not, we've been through this before and other things. Do we need to actually, can we just put that in as a revision that is based on how it's functional here editorially without going through all of the discussions and vote on it. That's my.
We can incorporate those changes if we look for the motion B language that you could find on page
No, no, I
213.
understand all of that. What I'm saying is at one point, we're going to put a whole big document before us as revised, but are the revisions going to be voted on as we have in the past? I don't think it's necessary for this. It's really an editorial change that puts it into the perspective of what we do. Pediatric middle is a permit.
Right. The board members may have other suggestions to add, but this is the only thing that we are adding to what has already been
The way
outlined.
we can do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
So what we're presenting to you today are modifications from the last revision you approved. In order for us to make those modifications, we need a board motion approving the modified text as presented in the meeting materials, plus the additional 2 changes that Ms.
I understand that
Walsh
completely. No, I
indicated.
understand that completely. I think what we're really saying is there's going to be a little editorial change right here. And if there's no objection to it, you want to make a motion now? No, one motion.
We
would
can
be
do a
fine.
single motion, I believe.
You
is
can
what-
do a single motion that would be motion
No,
B.
I understand all of that, please. It's, do we need to go through this text or is it okay to just go for it right now? That's the question.
Yes, unless the
So-
board members have further changes.
So that's my question. Does anybody have any changes on the document as revised with the editorial word pediatric minimal sedation? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept this? I'll make that motion because I think we should accept this. Motion to accept this. And then where's the, you have the words. Let's get the words.
213,
To what, please?
213.
Yeah, because there's going to be probably some legislative information in that too. 213?
Yes, sir.
No, I think it's further down.
Second half of the page.
Maybe it's motion B. All right, so I move that we approve the proposed modified regulatory text for CCR Title 16, Section 1018, and incorporated guidelines and attachments 1 and 2 that includes the following changes. The potential amendment of the word pediatric and they to be consistent with our processes, and direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including sending out the modified text with these changes for an additional 15-day comment period. If after the 15-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulation and incorporated guidelines and adopt the proposed regulation and adopt the guidelines as revised in this meeting as described in modifying text notice for CCR Title 16, Section 1018. Is there a second?
You second.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. Is there any further board discussion? Seeing none, is there any discussion by public members in the room? Seeing none, is there any discussion by those members on WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please facilitate the changes or the comments excused by those participating via WebEx?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. Board Secretary, I'm going to give you a break. You don't have to read the whole motion again. It's there on the recording and in writing. And if you'll take the vote, please. A little louder, we can't hear you. Microphone.
Motion is stated by Dr. Felsenfeld. Chan?
Jan, I.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, yes.
Felsenfeld, yes. Forge?
Forge, aye.
Forge, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie?
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage?
Olagi, aye.
Olage, aye. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur?
Thakur, aye.
Thakur, aye. You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bruggeman, where are we at here? We're at 14B. We just did that, yes or no? No, we're doing 14B now. Is that correct?
We are just finishing 14B. We would be moving on. to
Regulation control. We got to go to
15A.
14C. Is there 14C? I'm going to go down the C's here. All right, so we're now at 14C, discussion and possible action to consider modified text for currently.
That item has been pulled from the agenda.
Oh, it has?
We'll consider it at
Didn't
a
know
future
that.
board meeting. I apologize for the confusion.
Disciplinary guidelines.
We just,
We did that.
we just
We
completed.
did that earlier.
Yeah, that was item 14B, sir.
14D. All right, so we're at 15.6. I was there. All right, tentative legislative calendar. Is that what we're up to? Michelle? You
Yes.
okay? Thank you very much. Nice to see you again. 15A, tentative legislative calendar. Is that what's next?
Yes, thank you, President Felsenfeld. If you'll look on pages 260, starting on page 264 of your meeting materials, you'll see the tentative legislative calendars for 2024 from both the Assembly and the Senate in essentially similar deadlines, if not identical in each case. Of relevant interest to us is that the legislature is scheduled to recess on March 21st. That would likely be the last possible date that we could anticipate having a sunset hearing. We have not seen a date announced yet. We don't even have a hint or a suggestion, but based on the scheduling of the hearings last year, which were on March 16th and March 18th, I believe we would anticipate similar dates for the hearings. One of those dates which would cover the dental board sunset process. Of additional interest, this is an election year, so the key deadline is going to be at the end of August for all legislation to have been considered. There will be intermediate deadlines between now and then. Most importantly, for our purposes, in May, when most of these bills will need to have cleared their first house. That's going to coincide with our May board meeting, where we would anticipate having some action items related to legislation addressing concerns for the dental board. Are there any questions concerning the calendars?
All right. Any questions from the board? This is informational. Any comments from the public in the audience? Seeing none. Any comments from those attending via WebEx? Would the DCA moderator please open the mics for comments from the WebEx participants?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or you may simply raise your hand or displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Bruggeman, 15B, an update regarding the board's 2024 Sunset Review oversight hearing.
Thank you, Board President. As has been hinted at earlier in the meeting, the board submitted its Sunset Review report in late December of 2023 to both the House and Senate committees. So they'll be responsible for reviewing the agency. That's going to be the Assembly Business and Professions Committee and the Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee. The report is available online for viewing in the reports section of the board's website. And as I indicated just a few minutes ago, we do not at this moment have a specified date for the hearing. We would anticipate once the hearing date has been scheduled, that we would receive some material from the respective committees prior to the hearing concerning their review of the Sunset Report and any questions that they may have. There would be follow-ups after the hearing with respect to both our responses to their initial questions and to any issues that are raised during the course of the Sunset hearing, and that we would be obligated to respond to them within a relatively short time frame. And then after that point, I would anticipate whatever sunset legislation to be introduced. I would not expect to see a sunset bill prior to the sunset hearing.
Okay, makes some sense.
Strictly an informational report, no action is requested.
Do any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Bruggeman? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the members sitting in the audience in the House? Seeing none, are there any comments for the people who are participating via WebEx? Will the DCA moderator please open the mics for comments from the WebEx participants?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Bruggeman, we're down to item 15C, legislation of interest.
Thank you, President Felsenfeld. This specific memo is informational only. There's no action requested at this time. It's relatively early in the legislative year. Yes, there have been a lot of bills introduced to date, but at this point, we do not have anything to bring to the board for their consideration to take a position on. We would anticipate we would expect at the May meeting to have some legislation that we want to brief the board on, and we may request the board position, or the board may wish to take a position on bills at that May meeting. I've indicated in the memo 3 bills that as of late January had been introduced that may be of interest to licensees of the public, but we do not believe require board action at this time. One concerns modifying the disclosure requirements for those individuals that prescribe controlled substances containing opioids that may cover certain dental licensees. Another concerns gubernatorial appointments of board members would be covered under that bill. Certain public requirements, public posting requirements are outlined in the legislation. And then SB 908 specifically modifies the California Public Records Act to require that if any agency officials, and the board member would be considered an agency official, makes a communication of official business on a non-official electronic messaging system, they would need to also make a copy of that communication on an official electronic messaging system. Not something that we anticipate a significant compliance issue. So, I mean, we want the board to be aware, but we do not expect controversial legislation. There have been bills introduced since then that would be of interest to the board as well. One concerns a requirement for all state agencies on a every 5 years basis to go through a zero-based budgeting process. We don't have a lot of details on this legislation at this time. Another is more for licensees concerning exempting certain dental benefits from disclosures, and that's more under the province of insurance and healthcare provision systems. And finally, there is a bill that was introduced just yesterday, AB 2242. It does address dental assistance. Literally introduced yesterday. I've not had time to even read the bill at length, so I would expect to have a full brief at the May meeting. And aside from this bill and the sunset bill, I do not anticipate significant legislation that would affect the Dental Practice Act, but those 2 bills are going to be significant enough on their own.
More to come.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, and this is informational, obviously, and there's not much information there to give us, so we're going to take a look at the board members. Have any comments on this or questions for Ms. Bruggeman? Seeing none, are there any comments from members of the public in the room? Again, none, so let's go to WebEx. Those members from WebEx who would like to make a comment, please let us know, and if DCA monitor will facilitate comments via WebEx, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
I thank you very much. Mr. Bruggeman, I think we're done for now.
For now, yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, you'll be back. All right, item number 16, discussion and possible action regarding appointment of dental assisting council members. We're going to ask Dr. Montez to give us some information on that, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
Okay, good afternoon. The purpose of this memo is just to reacquaint us with the process of appointing members to the Dental Assisting Council. As we are all aware, we've had 2 recent resignations, and so we have 2 vacancies. And in this time between the last meeting and this meeting, we have been recruiting for these members, an RDA, RDAEF, and Ms. Tran has been the lead on this process. And so you likely saw the recruitment notices that were distributed as well as posted on the board's website with the criteria in the application process. And so the RDA vacancy closed January 8th, and then the RDAEF closed on Friday, January 26th. The board received 32 applications for the RDA recruitment and 13 applications for the RDAEF recruitment. And so at this time, we have these two packages of applications that need to be screened, and then the individuals who go through the screening will be interviewed for the position. And at this time, I would request that the president appoint two members to a committee to screen and interview the applicants to then have appointed for our May board meeting and their subsequent dental assisting council meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. And consistent with the responsibilities of the president to appoint committees, I'm going to ask Ms. Pacheco and Ms. Alagi to go ahead and serve on this committee. They've got experience in doing this in the past and done a nice job, and they will be able to review and make suggestions and comments on the applicants. So the two of you are willing to serve. I see you nodding yes. Thank you very much. We're good. At this point, we're looking at public comment on item 17, public comment on anything not on the agenda. Is there any public comment on anything not on the agenda? I guess we have to ask the public for that. Any public comment from those of you who are with us today? What? I'm sorry. Oh, on the, oh, that's twice. All right, that's okay. Having a sugar rush. All right, so for sugarless Coke. All right, so yeah, public comment on the appointments. Is there any public comment on my appointments of the two young ladies for our dental assisting council review of the applicants? Seeing none. WebEx, from the WebEx, is there any comment on the committee appointments from anyone participating on the WebEx? And would the DCA moderator please open the microphones for that?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Mr. Board President, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to go back to public comment for items not on the agenda. Any public comment for those of us who are here in the room? Seeing none, DCA moderator, would you please facilitate public comment from those who are participating WebEx on future agenda items?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. The Q&A panel is open. If any member of the public would like to comment on future agenda items, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment.
No, well, okay. All right, thank you. And
all right, I see no request for comment. I return the floor back to you.
thank you. Dr. Montez wants to make some comments.
Yes, so obviously we are getting ready to conclude our meeting today, and I just want to elaborate that the February meeting was intended to be a 2-day meeting, as usual, with our dental assisting council in the morning, as we always do, and then followed up by the board meeting. There was unfortunately a weather-related incident over at headquarters 2, where we usually meet, and so that hearing room is not available and will not be available until there's some repair work. So we had to scramble to find an additional location that would allow us to do our WebEx webcasting, and this room was available only for today. Though we had one of our other boards had a meeting yesterday, but we were able to have the room today, and so that meant having to condense our agenda. And because we did not have any action items for the dental assisting council, the decision was to made just to have a board meeting this time. And then we had to again assess our items and gauge the time frame, and that's always sort of a best guess kind of thing. We actually thought we would be here longer today, but we were able to efficiently move through our items. And then we also have no closed session items. And so again, when we anticipate and plan for our board meeting, it's our best guess of items and how we think we will discuss each item. And again, we were efficient, no closed session items, and so that's why we are going to be concluding earlier But I do think that it is important, from what I've heard, to put some information on our website about some dental assisting statistics that would have been presented. And I think that that's a very reasonable thing to do, since we were unable to have the council meeting this quarter. And then, of course, we do plan on having both groups meet in May, and this will be in Los Angeles, like we did last year. So that's it. I just wanted to give that explanation because I know we've talked about it internally, and I've informed our board members, but I think it's important for the public who may be participating and listening to understand what had happened, to have just the one meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. Well, we are done with anything. There's no closed session, obviously, so we can skip items 18 through 22 or 23, depending on which book you have. And as usual, I wish to thank the board, the staff, our moderator, and the public members for their hard work, input, and participation. This meeting is adjourned and concludes the February 9th, 2024 Quarterly Dental Board meeting. Good day. We're done.